So the vegetables are all ready to go in the ground tomorrow. This is going to be quite an undertaking. Now, I'm not going to plant any of my veggies in the ground actually. I'm going to put them in pots. And so I have enormous, enormous pots. I have 15 to 20 gallon pots that I'm going to place them in. And the reason why I put them in pots, and I've done this for the past 2 years and they do very well in pots, is because it's easier for me to actually move them around the yard and put them in different spots depending upon the weather. So if we get a wicked thunderstorm with high winds, I can move them around and place them up against my house near my patio and keep them protected. And they'll always be nearby. So when I open up my sliding door, I can take care of them much easier than walking out into the blazing hot sun in my yard during these hot summers that we have here in New York on Long Island. And they are awful, awful summers every single year. It's very humid here on Long Island because we're close to the water. So I'm going to go for asparagus. Now, I never, ever, ever grew asparagus before. And when I got home, I looked up on the internet about growing asparagus, and I'm a little disappointed. I found out that it takes about 3 years before you can actually pick your asparagus and eat it. And so it takes that long for it to really mature. If you grow it and you eat it within the first, year or two, it's way too tough to eat. So this is not cool. I'm not very happy about this. And also for container growing, this is actually not a good thing. You can do it in containers, but the problem is asparagus needs a lot of room to grow. And so if you are planting asparagus, you really need to get a gigantic pot. I mean, I'm not kidding you, huge. It has to be at least minimum about, I believe, 20 inches deep and by about maybe 24 inches across or 20 inches across minimum. And so this is not going to be fun because now I have to wait 3 years for this plant to really mature and to give me a yield and something I can eat. Now, I read online that if you plant this in the ground, it actually can last 20 years. It comes back every single year. And after the third year, you're going to have quite a crop. In the pot, probably you have no more, you probably have about 3 to 5 years of it in a pot. But with the pot, you have to make sure you have it deep enough and wide enough, and you feed it really, really well. You have to give it very good soil. So you can't just use this Miracle-Gro type of stuff you find in big box stores. You have to amend your soil. So if you do buy that very bad potted soil that they sell in big box stores, you're going to have to amend it with a lot of different things. And from what I was reading, I believe you need to add a lot of like bone meal or blood meal. I forgot which of the one that they recommended. And you have to use a lot of food and feed it very well. And you have to actually give it light and fluffy soil. You can't have very heavy compacted soil because it's not good for them. These roots need to grow really, really, really deep into the pot. And also your pot has to be drained very, very well. So if you place it in a pot, you have to actually get a drill and drill out a lot of drain holes in the bottom of it. So I'm not very thrilled about this particular plant. It's sort of a bore for me. I don't want to wait years for anything to happen. So these are actually something I'm looking forward to. These are regular, like big box store vegetables. Now I prefer organic, but I could not find any organic Bonnie plants. They were all sold out, and I want to get started as soon as possible. Now, my favorite vegetable in the whole wide world to grow beside the herb basil, I mean, I guess it's not a vegetable, basil, but is actually snap peas. No, I'm sorry. Snap beans. Snap beans do wonderful in pots. I mean, I had about a 15 to 20 gallon pot last summer, and I only had 2 bean plants. And at first, they were these dinky little things that you see here. Within, I'm not kidding you, maybe 3 weeks, I mean, it blew up. it grew so tall. I put a little metal little trellis in the pot so they can actually, they have like these little vines that like to grab onto things. It was so prolific. I had so many beans that it was really, I couldn't even count the amount of bags of beans I filled up with those two little plants, these dinky little plants that you see at garden centers. Another prolific grower for me was these type of tomatoes. They're actually, I'm trying to find it, like it was Big Boy last year. I haven't done Big Beef yet. We'll see what happens with Big Beef, but Big Boy did really, really well for me. I remember I got a plant this size, and I'm not kidding you, within like 3 weeks, the thing blew up. It was so tall. It was about at least 3 to 4 feet tall. And all I did was I amended my soil in the pot. I put a lot of good stuff and good nutrients in it, and I kept feeding it, and it just got enormous. I never ever grew bell peppers yet, so this is going to be like a first for me. But I did grow jalapenos last year, and that was another one of my top growers. I did Bonnie jalapenos, and let me tell you, oh my God, this thing grew to about 4 feet tall in my pot. It grew nonstop jalapenos, one after another. I had so many jalapenos that one pick, like alone, had over 5 1-gallon Ziploc bags filled to the top with jalapenos. I also really do well with oregano and basil. My basil plant got about 4.5 to 5 feet tall from one of these size plants within probably about 3 weeks. I could not believe it. So I'm all in all very, very happy with Bonnie plants. The Bonnie plants generally has a bad name. You know, it's like big box store vegetables. And wow, just wow is all I can say. Now, I made sure I fed them well. I put last year Job fertilizer vegetable plant spikes in the pots, and they seemed to eat that up and love it. It was like candy for them. Now, another thing I'm going to have to do is add perlite, lots of perlite to my pots, because if not, the soil gets very compacted when it gets wet and it could suffocate your plants. And this makes it nice and fluffy and airy. I also put vermiculite in my pots and a little bit of this blood meal. And I put little notes on there for me. And I put a little bone meal in there. Once in a while, I'll throw a tiny, tiny little bit of this and scratch it in the top part of the soil. And here and there, I try not to like do anything with Miracle-Gro. Like if I like spray the Miracle-Gro garden hose on it, like these type of things, because if it's edible, you don't want to spray chemicals on anything edible. So I try to stay away from using chemicals like that on things that we're going to eat. So tomorrow's going to be exciting for me. I can't wait. I got loads and loads and loads of 15 to 20 gallon pots all waiting to go. And I had to amend a lot of that big box store soil, which I actually hate. I much rather get my soil from private nurseries who have really good organic soil with no chemicals in it. But this year we couldn't really afford to pay more money for the soil, so I'm going to have to amend it with a lot of stuff. So stay tuned, and tomorrow we'll show you, I'll show you like how wonderful everything looks all potted up and ready to go.